Hello everyone, my name is Tom. Welcome back to Let's Talk with Tom, the show here on the Roundtable where I talk about anything animation I feel like talking about. If I seem like I'm a little, mad today, it's because I woke up and there was snow on the ground. I had to clean off my car this morning. It's early November. I was not mentally prepared for this. I was not emotionally prepared for this, but that's what I get for living where I live. But what makes it better is the fact that I get to talk about one of my favorite shows today. Because this week, She-Ra Season 4 dropped, and they just murdered us. They were like, yo, you're getting murdered. And we were like, alright. So, to be specific, I want to talk about a specific theme that was very prominent in this season, and that's toxicity. There's lots of toxic relationships, toxic behaviors, and a whole lot of what comes with that. Just exploring the ideas of toxicity through different characters and different relationships. Primarily, one of the characters that most commonly gets labeled as toxic is Catra. And oh boy was she quite the centerpiece for that this season. In the case of Catra, we are seeing her at a point where she has pushed everyone in her life away. We talked about at the end of last season how Adora was now done with Catra's BS and she was now no longer going to give her the patience of trying to save her or bring her over to the good side. She was like, nah, you're a toxic influence in my life. I'm done with you. That's it. And Scorpia this season realized, yo, you're actually really awful to me. She ended up standing up for herself and walking away from Catra. Hordak lashed out at her because he realized that he was wrong to trust her. And even Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio were starting to call out Catra for her behavior. And as this is happening, we see for the first time the show starts to portray the internal struggle going on with Catra over her actions. Catra is watching the way that her actions are hurting others and the way that it's pushing people away. But she's also reached the point where it's very difficult for her to be vulnerable or to show any emotional weakness towards people, meaning it's very difficult for her to take any type of accountability for her actions, which as a result causes her to push people away even more. We see Catra in a position that many of us who have been hurt by rejection can relate to. She's been rejected by the people that she thought were close to her, and she doesn't know or understand what she can do about that, so she's seeking out validation through other means. Throughout the show, she has been chasing power within the Horde as a way to prove her worth, as a sense of external validation that she has some control over. Because sometimes validation from others is something that you can't control no matter how hard you try. Like in my experience, when I've had my heart broken, I usually turn my focus towards making things or working out as a way to supply a sense of validation that I'm not getting from other places. I would seek out validation in places where I knew if I worked hard enough, then that validation was pretty much guaranteed. Because the scary thing is you can be attractive, kind, charismatic, whatever great quality that you have, and people will still reject you because it's impossible to be right for everyone. But if you have some sort of way to measure your worth in a way that cannot be argued, that is very objective, then that can work as a coping mechanism. For example, I have a saying that is partly a joke, but I love powerlifting because the barbell has never hurt me emotionally. And the reason I say that is because people can reject you, and once they reject you, you can't really do anything about that. But with a barbell, you put on weight, if you can't lift it, you can get stronger, and then you can lift it later, and there's nothing stopping you from getting stronger aside from hard work. And in Catra's case, she's using her position in the Horde in the same way. She doesn't understand or want to admit why people always leave her. But every time they do, it's devastating. So to cope, she keeps climbing up the ladder, trying to prove her worth, and becoming undeniable. And it's also really sad in the fact that you could see that she started to develop a friendship with Double Trouble, but then it was kind of obvious that Double Trouble was really only being that way for money. Double Trouble is giving a service, and they are very personable and very friendly because they want to sell that service. And then at the end of the season, when Catra has come to the end of this road, she's done everything, she has definitively proven her dominance over Hordak, Double Trouble walks in and just exposes how empty it is. She has worked so hard to come all this way, and all she has to show for it is a list of people she cared about that no longer want to associate with her, and a fascist empire with blood on her hands. But the point I'm trying to make is this is not a solution to your problems. Becoming dependent on the validation of others is a road to heartbreak, and utilizing unhealthy coping mechanisms to find an empty sense of validation to get your fix is going to lead you to where Catra ended up. And the only reason I consider powerlifting to not be an unhealthy coping mechanism for me is because I do it because I enjoy doing it. Like, regardless of whether or not people like me or not, I'm gonna keep powerlifting because I just enjoy the process of getting stronger. However, in Catra's case, it's implied that she didn't even want this. Everything she has done contradicts who she is deep down because she was only doing it to prove a point out of spite. Catra became so used to putting herself out there for people only to get hurt that she closed herself off and stopped working towards building her relationships or trying to be a person who is capable of building healthy relationships. She instead used the pursuit of power to prove to people how wrong they were to cross her, how wrong they were to reject her, and how badly they should want her because she has value, which, as we see, led her down a very negative path. Then, like I said in my last video, Catra and Glimmer are two sides of the same coin. Glimmer may have had the validation of knowing that her friends would be there for her, but in taking on the role of queen, she wasn't so sure about herself. So what happened was she started to obsess over trying to be a good queen, while also grieving her mother at the same time, to the point where it started to impact her relationships with Bow and Glimmer. Bow and Glimmer? Bow and Adora. Bow and Adora. Because of the pressure that Glimmer was under, she became more extreme in her ideologies, and more on edge, causing her to lash out at her friends. There's also the very fun aspect of Shadow Weaver mentoring Glimmer, and Adora understandably being very upset about this, considering the fact that she spent her childhood being manipulated and abused by Shadow Weaver. Which, if you've ever had someone in your life who was very toxic, and then you thought that you were beyond them, like you moved on, they aren't in your life anymore, and then your friend starts associating with them or continues to associate with them, then it's a really betraying feeling. It makes you feel like your friends don't believe you. They don't believe that your trauma is valid or that you're being overdramatic, and part of you even starts to believe that too. And even though this is an experience that I've had, and I know a lot of people who can relate, I've never seen this story told in fiction before. And I don't think that I've ever been able to relate to the internal pain of a character so strongly as when Adora and Glimmer were in Shadow Weaver's garden, and Shadow Weaver made a comment about how Adora is so paranoid, and then Glimmer started laughing, and Adora just gave her that look, and I understood. I understood that feeling so much, and I know so many other people who can. And between this and Adora very clearly having a thing for buff girls, I don't think I've ever been able to relate to a main protagonist as much as I do Adora. So as a result of all these factors, Glimmer would end up being very distant towards Adora, and towards Bow as well. Bow is starting to feel like their friendship is very one-sided, and is starting to question how much effort Glimmer is actually putting towards it, and how much she actually cares about him. And as a result, him and Adora start to become better friends because they're both mutually watching their best friend grow away from them, leading the two of them to find out the truth about the Heart of Etheria project, and the fact that Shira was created to be a super weapon to, like, destroy the world and stuff. Which is why Mara did what she did as Shira, and now Adora has to do the same thing, or else everyone dies. And the sad thing is she wouldn't even really have to do this, except some people don't have the common sense to be like, yo, this super weapon will destroy the entire world, and that's not good for anybody, so maybe we shouldn't try to activate it. And instead they're like, yo, if we have this super weapon, then nobody can stop us. And by people, I mean Glimmer. Glimmer took a massive L here. This was all her fault. Like, I love Glimmer as a character, but like, yo, this was all your fault. Like, you should have listened to your friends. I also really appreciate that up until this point, we've seen the story kind of built around this idea that it's the rebellion versus the horde. The good guys versus the bad guys, and it's this war, and the whole story is built around that war. And now we're starting to see that Shira is meant to be a mediator, trying to diffuse the situation before it spins out of control, rather than trying to win for either side. It's basically what I said in my video leading up to this season. Glimmer is at the head of the rebellion, and Catra is at the head of the horde, making Adora not the head of the rebellion, but their secret weapon, in a much more literal way than I originally intended to mean. And now the story is more focused on Adora resisting her destiny of being that secret weapon, and what that destiny actually means. So Adora has to deal with this apocalyptic existential threat that lands solely on her shoulders, while dealing with the fact that she no longer has her childhood best friend, that her current best friend is growing away from her, and all of this is happening while her past abuser is looming in the background. She's in a very toxic situation, and I love the fact that we don't shy away from that. They show us all the baggage. The fact that Catra and Adora have one interaction this entire season speaks volumes in comparison to how much they interacted in the past. They show the way that she's being affected by Shadow Weaver's presence, and they show a way that she's being affected by her current best friend drifting away from her. And then they show how it doesn't stop her. She keeps moving forward despite everything that's going on. And also, this is happening while Scorpia is turning on the Horde and coming over to the princesses and realizing that there are actually people who are willing to accept her, even though the Horde spent all that time telling her the princesses will never accept you, that we're the only ones who actually care about you. And then to see her actually reunite with the princesses and have them just with open arms show her care and compassion and return the affection and effort that she puts forward. And seeing her reaction to that is just beautiful. Shira has done so well with representation, and so many people get on its case about it, claiming that it's just for woke points, it's just to get attention. But this is a form of representation hidden in the text. It's not something that you can as easily slap on a headline or just write a quick article about. It's representation for the many people in the world who have gone through trauma, and maybe those people gave up on themselves. And it's portraying those experiences through characters who are managing to get by and find the other side and get to a better place. Offering an example that, you know what, maybe in your past people have made you feel worthless, but that doesn't mean that you don't have value, and it doesn't mean that there aren't still people out there who are willing to put in the effort to treat you the way that you deserve to be treated. Maybe things are difficult, and it feels like everything around you is just falling apart, but you are strong enough to get through it, and you'll be strong enough to take on whatever challenges come next, no matter how hopeless it seems. The three main characters of Shira right now are Catra, Adora, and Glimmer. We saw that Glimmer didn't feel like she was good enough to be queen, or fill the shoes of her mother that she had just lost. So she ended up chasing the validation that she was good enough to do that. Catra had failed in all of her relationships, and she chose to use climbing up the ranks of the Horde and crushing everyone in her way as a way to make up for that. The thing is, both of these characters were seeking out validation from external sources and chose to act selfishly. They put themselves first and refused to take accountability for their actions because they had justified to themselves that it was not out of malice or because they were a bad person. It was them trying to work through their trauma. Meanwhile, Adora spent most of the season feeling useless, like she was inadequate, and not because she felt like she was failing herself, but because she felt like she was letting everyone else down. If you go back to the first episode, Catra calls Adora a people pleaser. And that's true. Adora lives to please other people, and that's what allowed Catra to keep her under her thumb for so long. But we've watched Adora navigate how to put other people first, but still preserve herself. Adora wanted to help everyone, wanted to be a good Shira, wanted to make decisions that would help the greater good, but in order to do that, she had to learn how to put her foot down. She had to learn how to be firm and stand up for herself. That way she would be strong enough to help the world around her. Because being kind and selfless and caring for others is not a weakness, but it takes a lot of strength to be that person without letting it compromise who you are. You have to be strong enough to set your boundaries and stick to them, to know when people do not deserve your patience, and when people are trying to take advantage of your nobility, which are the lessons that guided Adora through making the difficult decisions she made this season, and are going to help her be the hero the Etheria needs, with or without Shira. Because it's easy to be strong when you have unlimited power, but true strength comes from not knowing if you even stand a chance, but still charging forward nonetheless, because you know that's what you have to do. As always, my name is Tom, that's all I gotta say. Roll the outro. Thank you so much for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like, and you can comment down below to give us your thoughts, or you can find us at Roundtable Vids on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can find me at TommyPQM on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram, and I even have my own personal channel, youtube.com/TommyPQM. If you want to go above and beyond to support the Roundtable, you can click the join button down below to become a channel member, or you can pledge to us on Patreon, link in the description, and you can even support us by checking out our Teespring, where you can get shirts like this and many more to rep us out in public. As always, my name is Tom, I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. See ya!